Welcome, everybody, to the heights of live streaming. Yes, kicking the seat tonight is going to be talking about Wuthering Heights by Emerald Fennell. I keep wanting to say Emerald Fennell, but I'm told that that's incorrect, and I definitely want to be correct. So, yeah, from the director of Promising Young Woman and Saltburn, now comes... Look, the clue is in the title. Wuthering Heights has quotes around it, not only in the poster, but on the actual title screen of the film. So, reader beware. I have a working theory. I declared it this evening while I was ranting away in the kitchen after having watched this film just this afternoon. Today, I finished reading the novel. Got up at 3:30 in the morning to finish the book, and then I went to see an afternoon screening of the movie, so everything is fresh in my head. And I declared that if a person has read and understands and claims to be a fan of Emily Bronte's 1847 novel Wuthering Heights, you cannot be in any way pleased with this film. It is an abomination. And like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which we discussed last fall, also starring Jacob Elordi, it is not an adaptation. It is an interpretation. Here comes the
Dracula talk from last week, Katie.
No, as we discussed last week, the filmmakers behind both Wuthering Heights and Frankenstein have talked about their love for the source material and that theirs is an adaptation of the source material. Fennell's in a bit of a gray area because, and this is something that should be a red flag, especially again for people who are fans of the novel. She has said that this is more of a vibes take based on her when she read the novel as a 14-year-old girl. This is what she took from it. And again, I do not believe that she has read the book because
that changes my whole perspective of the movie.
Here, I don't care. Look, I don't care if if this is a vibes thing. This book is so memorable in its layers and its themes and its characterizations that there's no way you can interpret the written word as what shows up on screen. This is a Cliff's Notes version that has also been put into a blender and re-scrambled around so that there are characters who are missing. There are motivations and attributes that are switched around between characters. There is an entire second half of the book that is just not there. This movie ends in the middle of the book before the real story starts. The best way I can describe it to non-readers is, let's say 50 years from now, someone decides to remake Star Wars. And what they do is they remake Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and they cut off the story before Luke and Leia are born and claim they're lifelong Star Wars fans, and this is their interpretation of the source material. So, that being said, we are going to have a robust discussion tonight on the panel between people who hate this movie with a burning, fiery passion. I am animated tonight to cover for the despondency, the actual sadness and depression I felt as the light went up in the theater this afternoon, versus people who are standing so hard for this movie and will stand up for it and defend it here on the panel. And we might even have some middle of the road opinions. So stand back, everybody. Earth's Mightiest critics are here to talk about Wuthering Heights. I am Ian Simmons, kicking the seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the Wuthering blonde, who graced us with sheer elegance tonight, getting dressed up. Can you show the fan? Yes.
Very nice.
Yes. And we have Jeff York of The Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artist, Mike Crowley, if you'll probably agree. I almost said you'll probably review, which you will tonight. And Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive, Every Movie Has a Lesson, and Cinephile Hissy Fit Podcast, and too many other projects to mention. So, everyone, I have laid out my claim. We will get into some details. We will be talking spoilers tonight. And I'm going to try my best to approach this as a film and as an adaptation, but more so as a film because not everybody has read the book. As evidenced by the fact that this film is doing very well at the theater. So let's see. Don, I know you're on the sort of the opposite side of me here.
I'm on the positive side. Yeah.
Talk to me, Goose.
Talk to me, Goose. No, the place I come with here is a couple of places. to hear Fennell describe it as a vibes movie, and I know Jeff laughed at it, and I'm laughing at the idea of vibes too. Like, can you turn vibes into a movie? Because then I picture all the movies that I think don't have vibes, like, you know, the Tree of Life vibes movie. I want those Malik vibes, and I'm like, get the hell out of here. So no, if you're gonna do a vibes movie, inject what you want to inject in terms of an emotional response into a story that maybe has roots for it, but you want to take it in another place or style it another way, or extract a different little thread or an idea here. This isn't the worst place to go, because this book is a lot, and the film adaptations that come before it are just their own versions of a lot, and slow and boring, where if you're going to try to sizzle it up for a different crowd, this isn't the worst place to be. I know this is a stretch of a comparison, and I can't really call it a good one, but like, it's the idea of like watching Lerman's Romeo and Juliet, you know, like now, just like the idea of taking the thread of what you want to tell and putting some vibes to it, putting a different spin to it. Now, could this have been better if you're gonna like do those modern vibes and maybe make a modern adaptation, not set it back then? Probably. Like, if you're really gonna like, if vibes are the way you're going to go, take it that far and go that level. But there's ways you can kind of do it here and have fun with the acting, and inject some suspense. And because it throws you for a loop by taking the curveballs that it does as a film, as an experience in the theater, I'm here for the ride, and I was very okay with that. And a stylish one at that. Linus Sandgren, the director of photography, who's normally Chazelle's guy, makes the movie look very, very good. Love the framing, love the use of foreground, background, you know, and just the archways, doorways, floors. Like, it's really impressive, like, to see Fennell's vision get turned into a film where this isn't just like, I just want to party with these characters, I want to make them look good. So I was okay with that. Normally I'm not the kind of guy that would be okay with this sort of thing. I would be kind of in the chapter and verse crowd of adaptation, but this one, I had a blast, and I was okay with it. I was taken through the ringer that I wanted, that I was expecting, with the ruinous way that this novel goes. Now, being billed as like this year's Titanic, that's a stretch and a half. That's too far and too much. Like, this isn't this is an anti-romance more than it is a romance. But I was here for what she was going for.
Okay, well stated.
Yeah,
Katie, jump to it, or jump in. That I didn't mean to say jump to it. That sounds like a command. So sorry, jump in.
So one thing, anyone who watches this film and is then going to do any sort of presentation or book report regarding Wuthering Heights, you are going to fail. This is definitely in no way, shape, or form even the Cliff Notes version of this film. I mean, in the book, Kathy's dad dies when she's 12, and you know, things happen between these two characters at the culmination when they're 18. This definitely goes beyond that. But to me, this was less of a romantic film and more of a film about trauma bonding and abuse and pain, and how that is a domino effect, and it just becomes a virus regarding everyone. I feel like the one character that had any sort of actual morality and good nature was Edgar, who was the one who married Kathy, whether he just, you know, married her because of her beauty and whatnot. But this is a film, like, you know, with Nellie's portrayal, like, I know that's much harsher in the film than it is in the book, but I think Hong Chow did an amazing job. And it's like, with everything that she went through, again, it's the abuse that just keeps culminating throughout the film. Heathcliff is not a bad person until he is hurt. And it's like, you know, Noah Baumbach wrote in Greenberg, hurt people. And basically that is what this is for 2 hours. It's beautiful hurt people hurting beautiful hurt people. I know that the character of Isabella is a 180 from what it is in the book. I think what Emerald Fennell is doing in this, though, is that infatuation, and also especially in that era, it's like both Kathy and Isabella had no one to tell them what relationships are supposed to be like. All they see is like anger and Kathy hears some things, but she doesn't necessarily see some things. And especially with the Isabella character, she's so infatuated with Kathy, and then she becomes infatuated with Heathcliff, that when they pit Isabella, they're like pitting her against each other. It's like she's the one who, when I know from the book, she definitely is a victim of so much, but in this, I feel like she is a victim, but she's also
Isabella.
Yeah.
What is she a victim of in the book?
Didn't
More
she? Yeah. Didn't she get
married?
And she was married to Heathcliff, and then there's SA and horrible things that happened at the Wuthering Heights Manor. No,
I don't think it was implied that she was SA'd necessarily. She did have the kind of the wool pull over her eyes as far as what kind of a person Heathcliff was. There was never this ham-handed, terrible, I'm never going to love you, I'm going to be thinking about Kathy the entire time. He was, as charming as he needed to be in order to get her to marry him, which was part of his grand design. Right. Isabella in the novel has agency. She has a personality. She's not a rag doll that gets passed around between people. And she ultimately leaves Heathcliff while she's pregnant, which they don't even touch on in this thing. So yeah, she's a completely different character. Yeah.
And I knew, again, I haven't read the book, but I knew that there's a very much a 180 from the way Isabella is portrayed in the film and portrayed in the book. But I got to give Susie Davis, who's the production designer, a nod. I think she did a beautiful job regarding crafting the Linton Mansion and just all of its ornateness and just grandness and how huge it is, and then how cold Wuthering Heights is. And also, it's definitely a nod in many ways to Gone with the Wind. With the poster design and, different aspects of cinematography.
The riding off into the sunset scene.
Yeah, definitely. And just this tumultuous relationship between Kathy and Heathcliff that culminates into, a very Bridgerton kind of aspect about it. But I think for what it was, I think it I enjoyed it. I saw it twice. I think Jacob Elordi, this is very much a character that reminded me of Euphoria. Margot Robbie, I thought was great. I thought it went a little far in some of the aspects of the production design, aka some leeches. I thought that just took a little too much. That was a bit like, what? But other than that, I enjoyed the film quite a lot. Again, this is not a love story. If this reminds you of your relationship, run. Girl, run. Boy, run. Girl, boy, run. Everybody run. This is not. But I watched a show on Hulu called Tell Me Lies, that it's just full of toxic behavior and stuff like that. So, this is in my wheelhouse of what I like to see. So if you're into that, this is the film for you.
Well, I would say if you're into that, Wuthering Heights is the book for you, because this is not only not a Cliff's Notes version, this is the soft and cuddly version of Heathcliff. I do want to correct something that I had said. Isabella does suffer abuse at Wuthering Heights, but no more so than everybody else in Heathcliff's orbit. At some point during the book, he beats everybody he knows and comes in contact with at least once. He's very cruel. He plays manipulative mind games, and that's why Jacob Elordi, I'm sorry, he is not Heathcliff. He's Heathcliff in this movie, but in terms of the villain that's described in the book, I don't quite know who would play him, but it's definitely not this guy. And I'm sorry, it's definitely not a pasty white Australian, because that's one of the other things that it's amazing to me. I know I'm soapboxing here, and I'll get to you, Jeff and Mike, in a second, but in 2026, if you wanted to have a movie that spoke to what's going on in the culture in terms of class, in terms of race, in terms of what we think of history, you mentioned Bridgerton, Katie. Season 4 of Bridgerton is more Wuthering Heights than the adaptation, quote unquote, of Wuthering Heights. I don't know how you have, and I understand this has been remade a number of times with Heathcliff being played by white actors, but you have to look at the historical context of when that happened. You're not going to have that in 1939. You're not going to have that in many eras leading up to present day. But in this case, I'm surprised there weren't like pickets and riots at some point when they announced that Heathcliff, who is described, his ethnicity is vague in the book, but he is at least it's hinted that he's anything from a gypsy to part Indian, which makes sense with all the trading that's going on, to possibly even black, to some kind of an American hybrid. He's referred to in some very not nice terms throughout the novel, and to have a character like that as the only white character in the novel, and what that means for the story, and Jeff, I know we've kind of talked about this, to have the main ethnically ambiguous character be played by a white guy, and then to have two background characters, characters that are turned into background characters. That's another crime in terms of Edgar and Nellie. To have them be race swapped into a Pakistani and an Asian American woman is baffling, because they don't even do a really good job of explaining why they are there in this movie, because they're still treated much like Bridgerton. Bridgerton takes place in a fantasy world where 1800s London is a bowl of Skittles. Everybody's multi-ethnic, multi-sexual, and nobody cares. That's not the reality in 1847 in high society England. My parents, for those who don't happen to know, I am mixed race. My dad was black and my mom is white. They were getting odd looks and questions and nasty things said about them in the 1970s in America. So you cast 150 years before that, and it just doesn't add up. So I feel like if the movie's not going to be about those and address them, and maybe even update it to address race and class in a different way that speaks to modern audiences, that's fine. But to not address it at all and just try and check a box, it's just another in this movie's kind of lineup.
That's where I use my Lerman comparison with Romeo and Juliet. Like that one in 1995 went places to modern it up, add some ethnicity and kind of just mix the pot a little bit. And Bridgerton is a great example because Bridgerton doesn't bat an eye and just lets you know, hey, we're in pure fantasy, we're in pure fiction. You're right. There's this place where this movie could go further than it did, in that department. I think you could tell this was Elordi and Fennell's relationship just being like, hey, I'd love to have you again, and we weren't going to get Dev Patel,
And she definitely has had criticism regarding whitewashing Heathcliff that I've seen online and seen from
the Brits have been merciless.
Yeah.
I think for me that's the core problem.
Sorry. 1 second, Jeff. I want to just mention something because Don, you bring up a great casting suggestion, but again, much like everybody else in this movie, he's too old at this point.
He is
Dev Patel, because
he's a youthful looking man, but he's 30.
But he's also it's a terrible example. But when he was in the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar movie, he played the villain, and he was just that kind of petulant, prideful, rageful little jerk that would have been a perfect Heathcliff in this movie about 15 years ago.
15 years ago, right.
So Jeff, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I think everything that's been said. There are wonderful aspects to this. I think in the sense of the art direction, I think is a little bit overdone and not necessary, but it is beautifully done. I think that there's a certain amount of vibe to it that is interesting. I think it is psychological. It's funny to me, though, because I think it's almost one of those instances where I think Fennell has tried too hard to make something that, she can put her imprint on and be different, because the book is contemporary. It's about issues that we're all dealing with exactly today, and nothing has changed. This is a book about race, it's about class, and it's about parentage. And the parentage is something Don touched on, and Katie did too, that's passed down. Katie, I disagree with one thing you said. She doesn't know how to be in a relationship. No, then the kind of relationship you're talking about, nobody was in those days. Relationships in those days where women were this and that was it. And this is letting them be sensual and angry and volatile and 100 other things that a good English woman was never. So Brontë was commenting on that. That's all parentage. That's learning from a lot of bad influences and stuff like that. But the core of this, and this is where it's to me just a head scratcher from the get-go, is it's about this friendship that starts as, innocent children, and they're a little edgy with each other. They play a little volatility to them. And they grow up, and there's mutual gathering attraction as they go through hormones and stuff, and they cannot be together. Society will not let them be together. That's the story. And from there, what Brontë did is, well, what do you do with that fear? What do you do with that lust? What do you do with that? Well, it comes out in other places. And, you can say that Heathcliff is one of the worst male lead characters in a book, and yet we understand why he is, because of the way he's been treated throughout this. That does not excuse him, but that's the reason. And that was bold and daring to write that in the era when Brontë wrote this. And it was not a hit book. It was a very controversial book at the time. She was saying a bunch of truths that people didn't want to hear. I think Fennell had the opportunity to say those same truths today, where there's a lot of this stuff going on with class system and who's who. I mean, look at even some of the stuff that's going on now. We're seeing that's a very different world for the rich and the elite, and they get away with a lot of things. And those kind of things just naturally fall in place. I'm not sure they're ever different. They've always probably been that way. It's all a rich man's trick. But there's some things that they could have and started to do well here. But those kind of things, I think, to me, just belie the material. And so for me, I would almost want to ask her from the get-go, why did you do this? There's other stories that you can adapt. I mean, Don, it's interesting you mentioned Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. It's pretty close to Romeo and Juliet.
It is. It sure is. Yeah.
Except with handguns and cars. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yeah.
story,
Right.
and a lot of the text is exactly the same. And, I said in my review, they did modern dress Hamlet back in the 60s to show that corporate America was as bad as Polonius. Yeah. And it was hilarious. And they still do that today with different kinds of takes on it. Ian McKellen famously did a Richard III, which was a metaphor for Nazism back in the 80s. There's ways to do these adaptions of all kinds of classic material. But this one, to me, if you're going to do this as a modern updating and you don't address the core idea of, that, Heathcliff is described as a dark-skinned gypsy, a Spanish castaway, or even an American. Like somehow an American is as bad as anybody from, a state of where people don't look like us. I think those kind of things and the immigrant backlash in every corner of the world right now could have made for a fascinating modern story. And all she had to do is kind of do that story. But then again, she kind of fell into the zagging thing. She likes to zig, and she's a very good zigger by and large in movies. She tells a story about a rape victim told from the best friend who survived in Promising Young Woman. Fascinating angle on it, because usually be, the I spit in your grave kind of thing where the woman comes back to get the revenge. So she likes to zag, but here to me, she's done what almost every other version of this has done and that is do the same kind of casting. Oh, Laurence Olivier will play Heathcliff, or, Ralph Fiennes, one of the most refined Englishmen to play Heathcliff, and it doesn't really work when you know what the source material is.
Yeah, very well said, Jeff. And Mike, bring us home with your high-level kind of opinion here.
I was kind of like the uncultured schmuck when I went into the movie because I didn't know of Wuthering Heights, the book. And I think minutes before seeing the movie, or an hour, I found out everything. And after I saw it, I'm like, hey, you know what? This movie feels like it's missing something, because you have all these characters who I find to be reprehensible, and yet the movie's trying to force me to like them. And then after seeing the movie, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, yeah, in the book, Heathcliff does this, and that shows that he's just like a terrible person. And I'm like, if you're going to make a movie about terrible people, then show how they are terrible and why we should be nothing like them. Because this movie wants us to like Heathcliff, but he's just horrible. And I don't know, like something with Jacob Elordi's performance in the movie, it didn't quite rub me the right way. He sounded like he had mothballs in his mouth half the time, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. And then, like, the points you guys were made, the points other people made to me, where I'm like, oh wow, that would have made for a much better movie. That would have made for a much better movie, which is so depressing because I feel like Emerald Fennell, she made one really awesome movie, which was Promising Young Woman. And then Saltburn was kind of like, I don't know. And then this movie, it feels like they had to make a movie on Valentine's Day to reach out to like a certain demographic. Like, oh no, it's a romance, but this movie's anything but a romance. Like, this movie is like I can't remember the name of the movie, but the one where Ryan Gosling is having a
Blue
long
Valentine.
relationship. Yeah, Blue Valentine. I was trying not to say Blue Velvet. Yeah, but Blue Valentine. That's very.
Although I would watch a I would watch a Ryan Gosling remake of Blue Velvet. That would be amazing.
Mhm.
Oh man, yeah. What if he was playing Dennis Hopper's character? Now that would be
Yeah.
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 Good.
yeah. Oh my god. But yeah, it's like this movie felt like a half measure. It felt like the studio came in and told Emerald Fennell, hey, you gotta hold it back. We want this to appeal to an audience, so then we can get all Valentine's Day crowds out there and purchase their tickets. And they did just that. And yeah, I really want Fennell to come back and show that promising talent that she had in Promising Young Woman, and it just wasn't here. Like, beautifully shot. I even like how she took contemporary music and mixed it with the century that it took place in, kind of like what Sofia Coppola did with Mary Antoinette. But outside of the aesthetics and a strong performance from Margot Robbie, not that great, and also annoying character. So annoying at one point. I was so happy when Hong Chow like pointed out to her, "Will you stop crying? You cry over everything." And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much sums it up for me.
Yeah, I mean, the really unfortunate thing is that, and as I mentioned, there have been a number of adaptations, and this is the only one I've seen because my familiarity with the book began and ended with me starting it a month ago and finishing it this morning, and then seeing the film.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone has actually fully adapted Wuthering Heights faithfully, because the focus seems to be on the Catherine and Heathcliff story. And what's amazing reading the book is when it gets to that halfway point, and spoiler alert, folks, Catherine dies, shortly after giving birth to her daughter, who Edgar names Kathy. The second part flips over, and it's about the legacy generations that come after that. And that, to me, is where the real story is. And I was floored several times reading that second 150 pages or whatever it is, because there's a relationship between Kathy and Linton, who is Isabella's son. Isabella dies after leaving Heathcliff. She gives birth. Heathcliff orders Linton to be put under his care at Wuthering Heights to raise him, along with Kathy's other younger brother, Hareton, he's not in the movie. And I won't spoil it for people who haven't read the book. I'm just going to go out this far onto the plank and just say the relationship dynamics between those three characters evolves and becomes something that I mentioned Star Wars earlier. This has a Darth Vader style redemption arc at the end that is just beautiful and completely unexpected. And on top of that, the framing device of this novel, one of the most contemporary things mentioned. Yeah, well, one of the most revolutionary things, I think, and contemporary things that Jeff was alluding to, something he didn't mention, is the narrative structure of this book, because it is told from the perspective of a Mr. Lockwood who is paying rent and staying at Wuthering Heights. And he talks to Nellie, the old maid there, and because he falls ill, and he's like, well, tell me a story. And she tells him the story of the Lintons and the Earnshaws and all the crazy drama that happens. And within that, it's like narrative inception, because Lockwood's telling us the story, and then Nellie is telling the story through Lockwood. And then we get Isabella's point of view and other people kind of weaving in and out of the narrative. And at times you have to kind of go back and say, I'm sorry, which character is talking to me right now? But it all works its way back out and makes perfect sense. And so it is kind of strange when you see this movie that's being sold on all these hot and steamy sex scenes between Elordi and Robbie, Heathcliff and Kathy never have sex in the book. You know why? Because there's always someone around watching them or being with them. Nellie's the maid. She's like going back to Bridgerton. There's always someone in the room with these high-class, well-to-do families. And when there's not, there's someone else kind of watching them. And that's part of the frustration is these characters can't get together unless they get married, which goes back to the kind of the societal values and courtship and all that stuff. So there's just a real opportunity here to tell a great, dark, epic story that could have been one for the ages. And my biggest regret is sort of on behalf of the film. It did well, $77 million opening weekend globally. I don't know what the budget was. I don't know if this is going to hold for a week or two because we got, Scream 7 is coming out in a couple of weeks. Not the same crowd, but
yeah.
But
if it's the same crowd, wow.
Well, yeah. I definitely wanted to turn ghost-faced a bit in some of these scenes. But my point is, when is the next time someone's going to say, "Hey, let's adapt Wuthering Heights, only let's do it for real"? They're going to be like, "We just made that movie," or "That's been done 100 times," or "Wait, where's the sex? Oh, it's not a sexy book." Well, we don't care.
Yeah,
I feel like this is the big 2026 swing when you had all the opportunity and the ingredients to really do it right, and you didn't. And so I don't know if this story will ever be properly served on film.
That's the hard part. Is this would take 2 films. This would take a prestige cable miniseries, and you wouldn't get a flashy big screen $75 million gross out of it. You'd have to get revenue streams and all the revenue sharing of cable and TV and Netflix and whatever it would be. So that's the hard part.
Don, I think you can do
a well
this.
done thing, but yeah.
Well, no, I think you can do this as a cinematic experience. If you put it out in the fall and you announce it as the big prestige award season drama that's 3.5 hours long and it has an intermission.
Yeah.
Look, when Avengers Endgame Doomsday comes out in December, it's going to be the most expensive and longest comic book movie ever made. So if you're telling me that, right, what you're going to have is a crowd and vibe of people who want to go to the cinema to see this great story.
Well, the hard part is it's Wuthering Heights because it's been done this many times before, and it's been kind of dry every time. I mean, even Olivier gave it its best in 1939. Now, I know different times, different censors, different things you can get away with or not get away with, but like, it's because it's never been done great, and it's not exactly like, it's not like Austin. It's B+ level tier stuff where I don't know who's clamoring for this. Obviously Fennell had a vibe idea in mind, but there's not a lot of people who are like, gosh, that's Tolkien. Like, let's get this thing on screen. This is a miniseries of Harry Potter again because we already had movies. So there's not a modern buzz for this. It's one of those antiquated.
But I think you can create it if you keep your budget down, because what is one of the biggest shows on TV for the last four years? It's Bridgerton. Yeah. You say this is the dark version of Bridgerton. It's coming to your screen, and you can say it's Wuthering Heights the way it's never been told before, or being told for the first time. You can market this. You cut down the production design and all the grand flourishes. You don't hire Charlie XCX to give, I'm sorry, a frankly forgettable violin piano score. I mean, some of the song choices in this, like, they just spell out the themes that are going on. Like when Isabella is, or maybe it's Kathy, she's trapped in the house. It's like, I'm a prisoner. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm paying attention to the movie. So, sorry, I'm just saying, Don, I think there's a way to do this, but I don't think we're ever going to see it in our lifetime.
No, I don't think so either. Because Hollywood, unfortunately, you'll get one of these driven by a filmmaker and driven by a studio who wants to try, or the right producers, because Margot Robbie's got production power on this. You can get one of these. You ain't getting two of these, and it's just, these aren't the things that get marketed and get done. And even two might not be enough to tell this story, because you're talking about Bridgerton being able to do this in 8 episodes of 1 hour, 45-minute television, to do one novel a season, and good job, Bridgerton. But you would need prestige cable miniseries. But
Don, I'm saying I think you can do this in 3 hours, possibly 3.5, with that neat dividing line, because the story is not that. The story is not that complicated.
No, but that is unsellable to a movie theater, because there's just not a crowd the way that there is a Marvel crowd who's going to who's going to pay money for 3.5 hours of that versus?
But here's the
an
thing,
Avengers
John.
movie?
There
There's
wasn't
just
a
not that
Marvel crowd. There wasn't a Marvel crowd before there was a Marvel crowd.
Yes, there was. That's the water cooler. It was the next big fun special effects thing. If it wasn't
No,
Jurassic
what I'm
Park, if
talking
it wasn't
about-
Terminator, it was Marvel. It was just the next cool thing that came. Wuthering Heights.
No,
is not
what
the
are
next
where you're
cool thing.
talking? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking strictly runtime that drew masses and got them introduced to sitting for. You had the 1980s
No,
when you
it's-
had the award season blockbuster, but no one was going to sit around. And people loved Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but if that movie had been 3 hours long like the Avengers Endgame, they would have been like, "No, we're not showing up for this."
Then you're missing my point, which is subject matter. Like, you can make as long a movie as you want. Subject matter is what they come for. No one's coming to Wuthering Heights. They're coming for Spider-Man 7. I'm sorry.
I think you mentioned it.
Let's look at the Odyssey. How long is that thing going to be?
Probably 3 hours.
Oh,
yes.
Maybe over 3.
And you need a whole lot more cachet than Emerald Fennell has. Fennell has. So, like,
Well,
that's.
I'm saying don't let Emerald Fennell touch this material ever again. I think she should be thrown under movie jail.
Fair enough.
But let's just say you had Christopher Nolan's Wuthering Heights or someone of that degree. I'm saying this is entirely possible, and it's possible to do. It would be a risk no matter what. But if you were able to bring this budget in, you have a cast of mainly unknowns, which is what you have here outside of your main stars. You get a couple of people who are willing to work for points. You make this thing for $50 million because it's mostly about the drama and intrigue of what's going on within the walls and not necessarily how well those walls are painted.
Yeah.
Even if you take a bath in this thing, you make a swing for it and you can say, hey, we've got something on record as being Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
I think it could be marketable because Ian, you mentioned that like there's a whole part of the book that goes into the children's sort of story and lineage. So you could make it like a 2-parter where let's say you make part 1, that's the story between Heathcliff and whatever her name is, Kathy. Yeah. And then you could make a part 2, which is about their kids. And
holy crap, Mike. You're absolutely right. And this goes back to the Star Wars comparison.
Yeah.
Because if you end this where it ends in the book, you've got the quote unquote birth of the twins and they're separated and then they eventually have to make their way back together. Oh no.
Have them be in front of the dual sunset. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Ian, in that latter piece of the book, how old, by the time the story jumps to the future into the second generation, how old are those kids by that point? In the same 20s that the previous characters were in?
I think young Kathy is 18.
Okay.
And she's actually a little bit older than Linton.
Well, we know in the movies we have 19-year-olds that play 12-year-olds. So like that's
I know, but in this film, and this is another fundamental problem with this adaptation, quote unquote, is you've got let's say Kathy and Nellie. In this movie, they're not maid and woman who's being waited on. They are friends.
Right.
Nellie's a companion. But as the movie opens, there seems to be maybe there's like a 5-year difference between the two of them. It's not like crazy, but then when we get to the present day, we've got Margot Robbie and Hong Chow. Hong Chow is 46 years old and Margot Robbie is 35. Right. Jacob Elordi is 27. In the novel, none of these people are older than 20. I mean, okay, Nellie is older because she's an adult maid who's looking after these kids, but Heathcliff is, I think he probably gets to maybe his early 20s because he kind of goes off to school and business and comes back. But Catherine, I think she dies when she's between 18 and 20 years old.
Wow.
She dies at 18 because she marries Linton at 17 and then dies in childbirth, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Edgar, when he shows up in this movie, I was gobsmacked because I had heard that they'd cast a Pakistani actor to play Edgar, so I was on the lookout. But when we first see Edgar and Isabella, I thought, oh, there's Isabella talking to her father, because you've got this guy he's clearly old and he's got gray sideburns, and that's Edgar. In the novel, they are the same age as Heathcliff and Kathy. They're all kids. They're not. Edgar and Isabella are not living at Thrushcross Grange because they're adults and successful in business. They're living there with their parents who eventually die. This movie is completely all over the place. And the other thing that's really baffling and infuriating, there's a whole illiteracy subplot in the book. Now, Kathy does help Heathcliff learn how to read as a child because he's brought in off the street. But the real problem with literacy comes with Hareton, the younger brother, who Heathcliff eventually comes to have in his charge. And Heathcliff, because he hates Hareton, because he is of the family that took him in, that has abused and teased him all his life, when he finally says, well, I'm basically your dad now, he beats him, he abuses him, he berates him, and he refuses to let him to learn how to read, which turns him basically into this illiterate, oafish, brute jerk who undergoes a transformation throughout the second part of the book, which is really beautiful. In this movie, Catherine's teaching Heathcliff how to read. They have one spat where she kind of teases him, and then we're meant to believe that when Heathcliff runs off in his fit of jealous rage and returns 5 years later as a multi-millionaire businessman, he still doesn't know how to read. That doesn't happen in 1847 in, well, basically anywhere. So I don't know what this movie is trying to say.
I think this podcast, as well as a number of movies that have come out and we're talking about and have talked about in your shows, all of your shows and yours too, Mike, is I think there is a shallowness in how people look at some of these classics and tried into titles and think about adaptation. I would argue that adaptation is maybe the weakest part of Hollywood these days. There are some good things. I think Don's right. This could have made a great miniseries. There's a lot of times in the 70s when they did these longer books as that, because that's where they belonged and that kind of length was there. And they could do them now. They're just single series, do 6 hours and do a great book. You could almost take the greatest of literature and assign them as, sort of the site for any streamer for the next year. But I think these people don't really even know how to approach literature anymore. I go back to Fennell. It's like, why do you want to do this book when you're only going to do that part of it? And then you're not even going to do that part of it. There are other bodice rippers. There are other female modernity stories that are much more adaptable today. I mean, you can do Sense and Sensibility today, and it would be great, because the same issues with what is a woman's place, where does she fit, how, there's countries that still are based on dowries, and a woman's worth is how much she brings to the table from her family's money. I mean, those things could be very contemporary and very modern and maybe even eye-opening. But I don't know what people see here. I mean, I've read some stuff and you've all touched on it. Well, it's a vibe thing, and it's, some of the good things that Katie mentioned. But I'll be honest with you, to Emerald, I don't think that's enough. You need to be a smarter filmmaker than that. You need to be smarter about taking these classics and these things and doing them justice if you're going to do them at all. I think of the days when you did East of Eden, and it's the last third of Steinbeck's famous book, and Kathy is a 65-year-old madam. You can't do that anymore, and they're not. They're doing a new version with Florence Pugh, and they're going to do the whole story because they left out 2/3 of the book. Those days are done, and yet so many filmmakers in Hollywood still want to do those. And yet they'll give a comic book, 3.5 hours, which is hilarious. But find better ways to do these classic stories. Treat the properties with respect, and otherwise write your own. Do something new. To Mike's point, she's done some very good contemporary stuff. She's clearly a modern person. She's a good storyteller. She gets stuff. She's an actress, so she knows how to work with actors as well, and she understands that all. But if you're going to go back and do Brontë, and then every door window gusts open, so there's wind blowing and dust and crap everywhere. It's like, what is this? I mean, honest to God, you could almost do a streamlined version of Wuthering Heights with no art direction whatsoever, and probably tell a better story if you were true to the characters. Because I think about like when they did the Sherlock Holmes series with Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwick back in the 80s. They went to all these old castles and all these rich people's homes and just used those homes. Now, they got rid of some of the modern lamps and some of the things like that. But it's like a rich person's mansion looks like a rich person's mansion. And that would suffice. You don't need to make it like, oh, this whole hallway is red. Who would paint a hallway red?
No, look, Jeff, then you would miss out on the fireplace mantle where it's a bunch of white sculpted hands.
Yes.
Coming out onto the
wasn't there
ceiling.
like a nipple backboard or something? I don't know what that was.
Jeff, I think you're onto something where like the shallowness speaks to it, where I think you're right. Either it's I don't want to say cognitive, because it's like a school teacher and I'm off work. All right. So, but no, like the idea of like the shallowness that that adapters try to get out of these books. They don't go deep enough. They don't go further enough into character. I think they want to substitute the shallow dive that they take with a depth of style and a depth of vibe. Like, look how pretty I made this look, even though it's razor thin on the inside. So like, I feel like that's a department of that is happening. And I think there are some filmmakers that do that aren't just young people like Fennell. So like there are many people who are guilty of this. This is just one of them that maybe is in that department. Is that still from a stylistic operation and an artistic operation, is that a bad thing? No. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not willing to clip Fennell's wings on that, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand the difference that could be had versus doing the sticker and more different versus I got a style, I got an idea, I'm going to take it and run with it.
I just think when you've got strong characters, you don't need room to be that strong. And I think she does it really well. But it actually reminded me of Crimson Peak, which actually is important to Crimson Peak because that house is a character. And the dilapidation and the coloring and the red with the mud and the earth underneath and turning the walls red and everything else. It can be beautiful. It can be well done. I mean, God knows the art direction in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet was incredible. But I just get mad that these people veer off so much of these stories, and if you love these stories, you have to know what the story is, I would think, because otherwise, why do you love it? I don't think anybody falls in love with Wuthering Heights because they think it's a body stripper. It isn't. To your point, there is no sex in it. And even the chaste Hollywood of the 30s and 50s and stuff, when they've redone this, had a little bit, frankly, not much here. I mean, they're always wet and going at each other, and yet no clothing is ever removed. We can't show her that she's pregnant. We can't show Heathcliff that she's with child, I guess. But so they have to find better reasons to like this material and do these kind of things.
Hey, Don, as the resident school teacher.
Oh dear. Yeah.
I want to give a suggestion for your colleagues. If teaching English, if they have this book on their curriculum, if they don't, they should, because I think it'll be a really fun experiment to assign this book and then do a book report scenario.
Oh, it's going to happen.
And see, right. But here's the thing, just see who says, well, I'm just going to go see the Emerald Fennell movie. I'm going to write my book report based on it.
We've all done it. Okay.
Because they can, but it would just be so funny to see how spectacularly wrong they get it. Because all you have to do is for the second part of the quiz and say, what was the importance of Harriton, or what was the importance of Linton? And they're going to be going to the IMDb page and be like, wait, where are these? What? Yeah.
Yeah. What was the one I did the worst? When I was a kid, I did Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury, and I was nowhere close to it. Like, just botched it. Just what didn't feel like reading the book. I think I bought the Cliff Notes at the time, which helps a little bit. And I thought there was one movie version. It was black and white and put me to sleep when I was 13. So like, I had no chance. Yeah, that was a nice C on the resume there. Yeah,
there's rarely any movie.
Oh, good. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying there's rarely any movie adaptations that really made me feel like, oh yeah, that's what I read. I think To Kill a Mockingbird when I was in school.
Yeah.
I remember reading the book and seeing the movie, and I'm like, oh, they cut the boring parts. I like this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as always, 90% of the time, if not more, the book's always better than the movie. And I separate the two as mediums. That's how I do it, playing the critic thing. But like, it's very rare that you see a movie improve on a book. Field of Dreams is like the best one I've seen, where like holding the surprise of his dad and like not getting rid of the identical twin Costner, like the movie's better than the book, stuff like
most screenwriters would tell you if you're going to adapt something for a 2-hour movie, it's better to do a short story.
Yeah,
because that lends itself.
Look at Brokeback Mountain. Look at Legends of the Fall. There's short stories can be adapted smoothly and well. Because even like Killers of the Flower Moon, that's only 2/3 of that book. They chopped off an entire third of that thing, and Scorsese wants his flowers. So.
Well, I was going to say the two, I think, most faithful adaptations that I've seen, aside from the ones that y'all have brought up, and I'm glad you did. One is Sleepers from 30 years ago, and then the other one. I mean, that book is so that film is so faithful to the book that the movie is boring. If you've read the novel, you're like, all I'm doing is watching people play out exactly what was on the page. But the other one was from last year, Life of Chuck, the Stephen King short story, as you mentioned. I think there's two changes through the entire thing, and they are really incidental. It's like, what was Mark Hamill's character's profession, and then there was something else, but it's like you wouldn't even miss it. But yeah, and that's the thing. And I was kind of talking to my wife about this because, again, I came home from the theater and I was like just blowing the roof off this place, just like in impotent rage, which incidentally is what led to the creation of Kicking the Seat in 2009 with Julie and Julia.
Right.
But I will say, well,
Sorry.
but no, well, but she said, well, yeah, but the books are always different from the movies. I'm like, that's true, but I think we're at the point now where that's no longer an excuse, because a lot of times what you're looking at is problems of runtime, problems with certain cultural things, like we talked about the race issue here, or if you're talking about Stephen King's The Shining, they didn't have the means to make the animated topiary creatures come to life, so they made it a hedge maze. But now you can literally do anything. I think instead of using that ability to go flights of fancy mode away from the source material, use it to drill into the source material and not only give audience lovers of the book a reason to go to the movies, but people who go to the movies a reason to visit the book, because you can hold certain things back or accentuate certain things here and there. But in terms of taking these big diversions, it's like, no, just stop, please.
I'll be the a-hole that says there's certain books that just aren't going to make good movies, and they shouldn't stop trying.
True.
Oh man, books that don't make good movies.
Wait, Katie, did you say something? Say one?
No, I said that's true. There are certain books that don't make.
It's not that they're unfilmable; they just don't. They're just not interesting. Like I think Sound and Fury.
I'll volunteer one. I think books that are told from a first-person perspective very strongly are very difficult to do. Bright Lights in Big City was one of the best books I ever read, because the guy gives an entire running commentary filled with self-loathing, cultural references, all the trends of his time, and trying to be cooler than thou, even though he wasn't. And as soon as you rob a movie of a narrative, because the narrative has to be the objective point of view of the camera, it loses something. It's why a lot of times people will insist on bringing in the narration, because the narration is so critical. I mean, with Henry Hill telling his story in Goodfellas, is it needed? No. But does it help it? Yes, it does. Right. His perspective is great on it. And when certain books are told first person like that, and they're entirely about that, I would tell you that if you ever read the book The Remains of the Day, the movie is good, but the book is 1,000 times better, because you hear what this man is justifying and what he's doing the entire time. And you just can't get that when the camera is on the film and has to take the point of view.
One of my favorite books, Flowers from Algernon, I didn't feel like Charlie was a good adaptation of it, because a huge part of that book, the main part, is the narration. Because at first, Charlie's mind is, he's a little disabled, so the spelling isn't right, all that. But then as the book progresses and it becomes more and more intelligent, the writing becomes that. And they didn't make that a part of the story. And I'm like, how do you drop the ball on that, man? But it's still got plenty of accolades. And there's so many, there's millions of examples we could give where movies don't do that. And sometimes it's questionable as to why. Sometimes it makes sense because you got to condense and make a straightforward narrative. Here it's like, wow, they make like you guys pointed out, Heathcliff was not white in the book, so why whitewash him? And also, why make it a love story when it's not a love story? So, or market it that way. So everything they did, it's just like, oh man, why? I
think that's why it's in quotes.
Totally.
Because it's not necessarily it's Wuthering Heights,
Well, that's I get it, but the problem is with the marketing. You've got that on one of the trailers. It says based on I don't even know if it said based on, but it was like the greatest love story ever told. I'm like, that's not true, right? But again, I don't know exactly how you sell this movie aside from kind of not selling it, saying if you've never read the book, you'll love quote unquote Wuthering Heights.
We're so different, you won't even miss it.
Because here's the thing, I think, because it was brought up here before, Fennell, has, I think this is her first really big studio swing.
I think so,
right? Because Saltburn and Promising a Woman, were those both A24? Or they're smaller studios, I think.
Maybe.
So this is a big Warner Brothers production, right?
Big,
Yeah.
big.
So
$80 million was the budget. I looked it up.
right. I don't know that Wuthering Heights is enough of a brand name to bring in normie audiences. The audiences it is going to bring in are the book lovers, right? But here's the thing.
And you
With
want
you-
2 3.5-hour movies, Ian? Come on.
No.
Don't go there.
No.
Okay.
My point is, for a big studio, however much money they put into this, because I said you cap it at 50 million, you scale everything back, and you make it a modest release and hope it's a hit. With this one, I guarantee they spent well over that to make this thing. But what they could have done is just called it something else, and then let the press say, this is like a not very good version of Wuthering Heights. Instead, because
Instead of saying this is a not very good version of Wuthering Heights. Yeah.
in the screening I was at today, it was sparsely populated because it's a weekday and it's 1 in the afternoon or whatever. But there were groups of women who were swooning and giggling and laughing, and I'm like, not big readers, huh? I don't want to fault them for that, but it's also like if they don't know, they don't know, and that's totally fine. They could appreciate the movie for what it is, but for people who want to see something faithfully adapted, it's being sold as an adaptation. I think that's the kind of rob it of that and just call it something else. I don't know that you lose any money by calling it, Jane and Biff, their 18th century or 19th century romance. All right. We're going to get out of here, but we do have some comments, and I forgot to give the comments disclaimer.
Yeah.
Well, so far so good. People are being nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe this is a sign that the world is healing. So for those of you who don't know,
if you tell a kid not to do something, they're going to do it, Ian. So
well, that's true. But
school teacher advice there. Yeah.
Before I said anything, we were getting a lot of stuff. So I'm happy to say that we've got a lot of comments, and they're fun. Some of them are all caps, but they're excited. I don't think they're angry. So we're gonna go ahead and look at some of these. Miss Chester, Mildred Chester, welcome. It's great to see you back. If this has something to do with either Kathy or Heathcliff, I'll pass. I find neither of them funny. That's because if you haven't looked at the thumbnail for this episode, I included the cartoon comic strip characters of Kathy and Heathcliff. Is a little dig. Yes. Thank you. HRC 31. So would it be like if Emerald Fennell's Pretty Woman was about Julia Roberts being undercover vice cop arresting Richard Gere? Close.
I'd watch that movie.
I would too, honestly. Is the casting around Heathcliff's racial identity similar to Bertha Mason, aka the Mad Woman in the Attic in Jane Eyre? I can't speak to that. I don't know.
I could see that maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pronounced, but potentially, yeah.
I think a lot of the second part of the novel is about entails. And Linton Senior's will leading to how Kathy's daughter isn't the heir of the Grange, but Heathcliff's son is the heir. A little bit garbled sentence there, but yeah, it is about inheritance and Heathcliff's machinations to not only take over Wuthering Heights, but also the other property as well. Just really stuff. Wuthering Heights, more like Weathering Heights. Have to weather the storm of my boredom from just the commercials for it. All right, Erwin Curtis, 4028. Okay. I can't say you're missing out because you can't speak to it because you haven't watched the movie, but my opinions are known. Let's see. I think Edgar Linton is always kind of a drip in every adaptation, never comes across as a strong rival suitor. Yeah, that's true. But and especially at the end of this book, when Heathcliff shows up to be at Catherine's bedside, and Edgar comes out and he's like, "Go to her." I'm like, no.
At least she had sex with her husband a couple of times. They tried in this movie to not necessarily assign passion, but put an effort there.
Right, and that's alluded to in the novel because of course they have a child together. Right. But part of the fun part about Edgar on the page is that he is not the Boy Scout that he comes across as in this movie. He's also one of the people, and this factors in the revenge plot. He teases Heathcliff as well. He joins in with Kathy's older brother, who doesn't exist in the movie, in teasing Heathcliff and giving him a hard time for various reasons. Most books are not adapted. They are stolen from dead authors. Is that a Cookie Monster emoji? I like it.
It does look a little Cookie Monster.
It does look like a Cookie Monster.
It's like a green Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
The bricks from Mario.
Oh. Erwin Curtis 4028 back again with Ready Player One movie was nowhere near the book. Thank you for bringing that up. That was the first episode of a series that we did years ago, and I'm hoping to bring back in 2026 called Page to Screen, where we looked at the film adaptations of novels. That was the first one I did with Cole Rush, and it was a huge mistake because we read the book and then we went to the critics screening. I got him in, and we both kept looking at each other like, wait, where's the book?
How is Cole nowadays?
Yeah, it's a great. It's a shame because it's a novel that reads like a movie.
Totally.
I think The Sweet Hereafter is better than the book. The Sweet Hereafter was on my mind since it's about a small isolated town mourning the loss of a bunch of children, like in Weapons. I don't think I ever was The Sweet Hereafter. Was Sean Penn in that?
No, it's Anthony
and Ian Holm.
Ian Holm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? Oh,
you're thinking of the
Sweet Lowdown.
Yes.
Or Wind.
The Woody Allen movie.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah. As long as you're not thinking of the Eastwood tsunami one.
Right.
That's the Hereafter.
Loosely based on. All right. That's a good
Here's the green.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, everyone, I think we've covered Wuthering Heights in dirt and bearing it. But I think folks have done a good job of presenting the pros and cons for this movie throughout the evening. I do appreciate y'all hanging out and dealing with my filibustering. I am happy to put this movie to bed. I'm also very happy that I read the novel, and I think, like all great books, it makes me wonder what other literature of its kind have I missed out on, and what can I go and dust off and dive into. I was not a reader in school. I found creative ways to get around all of those assignments. I only began reading for fun as an adult. And I love it. There are times when I want to give up watching and reviewing movies and just become a book recluse. Fortunately for everybody, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
It's not a place we can come to, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, I would like to just again thank my lovely and talented and ever so engaged team here. I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the Wuthering blonde in front, Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artist, Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree, and Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive and Every Movie Has a Lesson and Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Next week, date to be determined, but it will be 8 p.m. Central on one of those days. We're going to be talking about an older film, a film that is recently out on 4K, courtesy of Warner Brothers, that also released this movie. But we're going to be talking about Ben-Hur, a film that I've never seen before. This is going to be a first-time watch for me, and it is, Don, to your point, back in the days when 4-hour movies were a thing and won multiple Academy Awards.
Subject matter. I
Yes.
want to see Charlton Heston ride shit. That's what we're looking for here.
They also didn't have TV that is today with hundreds of channels and all that. And then they didn't make many epics in those days. I mean, they made some epics, but that was a big special thing.
Yeah,
that was the way to see movies back then.
Everything old is new. I think we're going to bring it back. We're going to start with Ben-Hur, and then we're going to go for the 6-hour version in the theater of Wuthering Heights in 2036.
And then you can see the remake of Ben-Hur.
No.
Will not.
The 1959 version.
Oh God, there's a 99 version.
No, they made it in the silent era, Mike.
Yeah, this is a remake.
Oh yeah. All
right. The DVD used to have the 25 silent film on it. This new one does not. It's a lacking special feature.
They take out Robert Redford's audio commentary and all the President's Men. Well, that's a huge point off for me.
I agree. Same. Yeah. And then for Ben-Hur, they had the short film, the OG 1927, took it off this disc. So yeah.
I wonder about those things because sometimes it's like a rights issue with the extras and stuff like that.
Some of it is,
and some of it's just like, well, I want to put it on the disc, which
Warner
is
Brothers being
unfortunate.
lazy.
Yeah. But anyhow, we're gonna go again. Thank you, everyone. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications and all that business. Please support all of Earth's Mightiest Critics. All of our information is down below. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care.
Mm-hmm.